Go get him.
I can't.
Yeah, you can.
I have to put my legs there.
You're over here making dirt angels. It's kind of like a snow angel, only in the dirt. Okay, get up. You're gonna get all nasty. Alright, I had intended to show you some ebonized oak during the last video, just to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like, but the video ran a little longer than I wanted to, so I'll just go ahead and show it to you real quick and get that done. And then we'll go on to starting to measure and some prep work on the boards to make sure that you know, you're working with good square corners before you start, which is important, especially since I don't have all the machinery to mill my own wood and do all that fun stuff. Most of my work is actually done by hand, and very minimal power tools are used. Alright, as promised, I'm going to go ahead and show you a piece of ebonized red oak, and I put a little bit of finish on it as well, so you can kind of see what the different shades of oak look like. Here is an unfinished piece of oak. As you can see, it's similar in shade to there and there. You know, it doesn't look too different. Minor shading differences, and as you go down, you know, you can kind of right through here, you can kind of see the color that comes out when you put a light varnish on it. You know, it brings out a lot of the character of the grain, and it kind of fills in the pitting, because this is an open pore wood, so you do get heavy grain pitting, as you can see. You might be able to see in here. I really don't know if you can or not. You can see these little streaks right here are open pores in the wood. And then this is ebonized. Let's see if I can't get y'all. There you go. That is an ebonized piece, and that is not a stain. That is a chemical reaction that the oak has, and I will show you all how to do that probably in the next video, and I will show you how to make everything for it and give you all a full explanation of what's going on, and you know, you can even increase that reaction through a few methods. But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing with this outer trim here. So you see, you're going to have your red oak here, your white light poplar here, then you're going to have this dark coloring on just this outer trim, because I didn't want to overdo it. And then you're going to have another piece of light poplar. So, you know, you're going to get, it's going to give a nice border to the table without being too big to overwhelm the rest of the table. You can really, and it'll give a good chance to appreciate the rest of the table while still respecting the fact that a little extra was done to the trim. Alright, like I said, we have to do a little bit of prep work to the lumber before we can use it. And this is going to be a common thing whenever you buy hardware store lumber, is the ends, you know, by the eye it looks square, but in reality it's not. And my preferred method of checking it is just line up the square on the end of the board, put it down there real good, and flush it up to this corner here. And then if you look, you'll see that there's a little lip that gets wider as you go down. That means the end of the board was not cut square. And it may look like it is to us, but it's not. And I've drew a line there that is actually the square line. So I'm going to have to cut that out. And we'll get that going. And I've cut lines on all of them. This one has some chip out right here that I want to go ahead and clean up. And also, that was a little off square. It was pretty close, but not quite where I wanted it. And this one has the opposite problem. You can see I butt it up to the end. I get it flush over here. And you look down, and the tip of the square is sticking out, which shows that there's an angle this way at the top of this board. So I went ahead and I drew my square line, which is just as simple as setting your square up there. You know, give enough to where, you know, your saw is not going to be just rubbing, and it's got a little bit on this side that you can work with. and then you just draw your little line across, which is fairly simple. So that's the first step, is you got to prepare the ends, and then you can start taking your measurements and going from there. Alright, well, I told you that I would go ahead and trim off the boards, and I figured I would go ahead and show you how it is I do that. It's a bit of a process. Like I said, I don't own power tools, so it does take a good bit of elbow grease to get these done. But let me go ahead and show you. You see here, I got the ends of the boards clamped together. That's probably the best saw I own as far as trying to cut nice, clean, straight lines. Nothing special. It's really just a miter saw. But, you know, when I'm trying to cut nice, flat lines, it's the one I prefer to use. See, I got these all nice and flushed up now. Or flushed up enough that, you know, they won't impact anything. And what I do after I cut them is, you see I got them clamped together and on the other end. And I clamp these sides flush. I clamp the sides flush so that, you know, I know that all of these are lined up together. And basically after I get them all clamped up, I just take my sanding block and go over it until they basically create a smooth surface between the boards. And it's kind of hard to rock it, and it's kind of hard to create odd angles on the boards because of the thickness of it. So it's not like I'm going to wear it down at strange angles or anything. Pretty much by stacking them like that, it makes it quite difficult to mess up. Now you can come off and you can end up like rocking it and rounding off corners. You know, that's something that could happen. But really you just go through and you just keep going the full length of the end until you get it nice and flat. And I've got it pretty much done here. But I just figured I would show y'all how I do it. You can see there's part of the brown end right there. But you know, this is flat enough, and they're all even and square to each other. So this will be more than adequate to go through with marking the length that I want, cutting the lengths, and pretty much repeating this for the other end. When I do go to repeat it for the other end, I will flush these up, make sure that the edges are flush, and then I will basically repeat this sanding on the other side. And what I'll probably end up doing is I will cut just on the outside of the line, and then sand it down to the line to make sure that I don't overcut. Make sure that I don't go through and overcut the line, so I don't have a 1/64 of an inch too short of a board somewhere, and pretty much make it look weird because there will be little gaps in there. But that is the next step, and we'll go ahead on to that. Alright, I figured that since I am doing a detailed how-to here, I figured I'd go ahead and show y'all a good practice for making a measurement. I'm not going to say right way because there's tons of ways to do it. But basically what I've done is I just set my tape right up along the edge of the board. So, you know I've got a nice, as close as I can to flat line from the end of the board. So I know that I'm not going through and having it canted all like this, and 31 inches like this is not 31 inches like this. You'll get different lengths on the board. And so I just hook my measuring tape down there on the end, and then I just pull it nice and tight on there. Not too tight. You don't want to rip out the little rivets that hold the end of the tape onto the hook. Then I just make my marking at 31 and a half, like I said on the previous video. Then I will take this, I will move it to the other side of the board, and make the same marking. The reason I'm doing this is really just to go through and make sure that when I do go through and run this square across here, it gives me an idea on how close those two measurements were as far as being accurate. Let me go ahead and show you here. So that's my mark there and my mark there, and they're pretty much dead on. So that gives you an idea that that little extra time to make sure that you're on the edge of the board, and make sure that you have a square end will give you fairly accurate. You know, they're probably at most a 1/16 of an inch off of each other, which is pretty close as far as marking like that goes. So we'll go through and toss you around a little bit here and drop you and try and get you stood up. And we'll just go through, make our line right across here. And that will be my cut mark for the next little part of the board. And we'll go from there. Alright, I'm done cutting and the sanding and flushing up the edges. You can see they're make a pretty straight line. Not a whole lot to do next. Next I'm going to join these and basically make them one long piece of wood to form the bulk of the tabletop. And I will go ahead and I'll get set up for that. And I've also done the second set. Just go ahead and get them out the way. And I'll go ahead and I will start getting set up to glue these together. And I will get back to you when I'm ready to show you that. Alright, I'm back and I am set up to start gluing these together. I only glue 2 at a time. You can see I got some plastic under here just in case there are drips. I only glue 2 boards at a time. I don't have a gluing rack for edge joining. So it doesn't make much sense to try and glue a bunch of them together at once, because then when you go to clamp it down, they'll pop out like this and nothing will line up straight, and you'll just have spent a lot of time and a lot of effort and have to start all over again. As you can see, I've got the little brush there, and that is a simple brush that is often used for welding, stuff like that. Just pick it up at the hardware store. They're extremely cheap, not a big deal.